Okay, hi everybody. Thank you for coming. I know a lot of you, and for those who don't know me, my name is Maxine Connor. I'm the Natural Resources Chair here. I'm on the board too, and I'm on the Florida Springs Council with Michael here, who's going to be our guest speaker. So we're going to do a couple announcements, a couple introductions, and then Michael will speak, and then we'll do Q&A. We'll be done. So let's see. I want to draw your attention to the handout that you have there about Ozello. And as many of you already know, we do have people from Ozello here, and thank you so much for coming. That went before it's a land use change that is going from, it's an application to go from coastal and lakes, low intensity development, and preservation. And the applicant wants to build an RV park abutting St. Martin's Marsh aquatic preserve on two sides and conservation land to other sides. And so our league is opposed. Local Audubon Society and Sierra Club is opposed. And we are standing with the Protect the Ozello Waters group, which has just become a nonprofit and organized themselves, and they are opposing it as well. So it went before the PDC, Planning and Development Commission, in February, and then again, they revised the application, and they came before the PDC in May, and they rejected it both times. Now it goes before the Board of County Commissioners for a final decision August 22nd. It was scheduled for June, and so we sent information out about that, and they postponed it. But this is kind of tough because a lot of people will be way, like the northern places. So if you want to mark your calendar now, we'd appreciate your support to get there. And if you want to make comments, I've given you a sheet there. You can make them to the Board of County Commissioners and the Land Development Director. The emails are on that notice for you. And that's a really important meeting because that's the final decision. I appreciate your support in opposing it. The site is in a coastal high hazard area. It's also a special flood hazard area. They propose a large septic system, a 10,000 gallon one. We feel that it will fail during high tide and storm events, and it's also going to leach nutrients into our waters. We do not want that. We know it causes toxic algae. We know that kills the manatee food, and the manatees die, so we don't want that going on here. Let's see, what else did I not tell you? A landowner is under review by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection for actions taken on mangroves. And they have hauled in fill already and installed a floating dock without permits. And also to note, it's kind of a public safety, not kind of, but it is a public safety issue too, because the way in and the way out is Ozello Trail and down on these inferior side roads. And the concern is evacuation. For one thing, it floods often, so getting in and out will be a problem. All you need is a big RV to get stuck, and then nobody's going to get out. If you want to get out in a hurry in a storm or hurricane or something, you just don't want that happening. All right, so that's Ozello. On the back table there, you'll see there's a stack of 3 clipboards, initiative petitions for the right to clean water. We've collected a lot of them already. The league is backing that initiative. So please avail yourself of those petitions, and we'd be happy to collect them and send them in for you, or you can send them in yourself. I'm going to have the board members speak in a few minutes, and there are other petitions there that one of the board members is going to speak to you about. Kate, our membership chair, says she can't be here today. She's sorry, but she would like to remind members that it's time to renew. And Vicki is going to collect. Oh, you have her. She's second. Sam Hall. All right, Vicki. I left mine home, but I will. The dog didn't eat it or anything like that, so. Oh, one other thing. I tried to give one of these handouts to everyone, but I just wanted to tell you, I belong to the State League Clean Energy Action Team, and we have monthly calls, and we have educational speakers. And so I just wanted to bring this to your attention because it's pretty exciting. On June 21st, Wednesday, and There's the flyer there, but if you didn't get a flyer, just see me after. I'll give you my email and I will email it to you. We have the three architects who designed Neo City Academy in Osceola County coming. And it was designed as a net zero energy building, but then when they put solar on the roof, it became a net positive. So it actually, over the course of each year, produces more power than it uses, right? And these three architects will explain the common sense things that they did that didn't cost that much up front. And most of the time, the return, several projects have been built since that. That was a prototype. And they will explain how they did very common sense things and how it didn't cost that much up front. They got the return on their investment in a very short period of time. And then it saves the whole city, town, county taxpayer money because it costs a lot less to run. So it just makes sense to do it. So now I'm going to ask the board members to stand up so you can see them, if they don't mind. Peg's already standing up. Okay. So we have our president, Nancy Thomas-Sully, right here. We have Vicki, co-vice president, Vicki. Chair. And we have Scott Baldwin, and he is our treasurer. Then we have Jan Paul right there. And Jan has done our social media for years, but she also works on our programs, getting great speech. Peg is our secretary. She's going to talk to you in a minute. She's working on a petition, some initiative petitions back there. And Mary, I'd like you to stand up also. Mary is a former board member, and she's been our secretary for many years. And she's not on the board right now, but she's a wonderful active member. Okay, so it's time for our speaker. No, it's time for our board members to tell me if they have any announcements and to come on up here. So one at a time, whatever, come on up when you're ready and do your announcement.
Hi, I'm Peggy, and as you know, I've been blasting you with emails. The League is supporting the Citizens Ballot Initiative to get the amendment to limit government interference in abortion on the ballot for 2024. And this is the thrust of it is government should not be making healthcare decisions, personal healthcare decisions. So the petitions are back here. We need another 800,000. Believe me, every single one counts. So if you haven't yet signed and you want to see the amendment on the ballot, the petitions are back there. And we start out just beautifully, fantastically in the first month with 100,000 completed petitions. So we're very encouraged. We can do it with your help. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm still Vicki. I have a couple of announcements. I am in charge of the Speakers Bureau. If you belong to any other organizations or you know people who are booking speakers for meetings, we have a whole bunch of wonderful PowerPoints that the State League of Women Voters supplies for us, and I would be glad to book for your group. The second thing I want to talk about, I'm really excited. This is going to be for members only for our July meeting. How many of you know who Gina Davis is? Okay. I'd like to be able to tell you that Gina Davis is going to appear, but she's busy. Instead, we're going to get the CEO of her institute, which is the Gina Davis Institute. You're nodding your head, you know what I'm going to say. For gender equity, and she's done some wonderful things. We're going to have the CEO, Madeline Donato, who is going to speak on Zoom for us. It's going to be a meeting just for members. I'm going to be sending out the link, and it's going to be July. I'll tell you at the end of the meeting. I'll look it up on my calendar because you're going to want this really important stuff.
Next, board members with announcements. Jan? I was just wondering if
Sure, I can do that. You know, she's a two-time Oscar winner. But when her daughter was little, she sat down and watched television with her, and she realized they're all boys. There weren't female characters. So she got some people together and they did the research, and then she went to the various studios and told them about that. And they said, oh, no, we took care of gender equity. When she showed them the statistics, they were like, oh my God, I didn't realize that we didn't do that. So there have been wonderful changes in children's programming. The next thing that she's going to work on is when actresses turn 40 or 50, they're done. They'll only play grandmas or mommies or whatever. So she's working on getting gender equity for not only women, but people of color and gay people and women over 50. And I told her, I emailed her and told her, thanks for thinking of the old boys. So you will get that information. I'm going to send it out to everybody. Put it on your calendar. I think it's going to be pretty good.
Want to make any announcements? Anybody in the crowd think they want to make an announcement? Yes, Casey Mayfield. Happy to have
Very
you
quickly,
here.
since we're on the topic,
Here, Casey.
I'd just take a second.
Casey is president of the Crystal River National Wildlife.
Yeah, the Friends Group, and so it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you again for all that you do. We're having a lecture tonight on alligators, and it is a Zoom meeting. I think the information is on the Friends website, and so feel free to tune in and enjoy a lecture on Florida alligators by one of our experts.
What time?
Oh, it's at 6 o'clock.
Thank you, Casey. I have my granddaughter today. She's only 20 months old and she's fascinated with animals. So believe you me, I'm going to turn it on. All right. Let's see. Just one more thing. If you're not a member, we would love to have you. Jan and help me out here. Mary. Jan and Mary. That's a senior moment. Okay. Jan and Mary are at the table there, and they would be happy to help you. We'd love to have you. It's the best. I belong to a lot of groups, but I think this is one of my favorites because they educate you all the time. We have lunch and learns on not every Friday, but some Fridays when topics are happening of interest to do with current events, to do with the league and their positions on things. They will educate you. It's an hour at lunchtime on a Friday. They advertise it to the members. We zoom in at our kitchen table or wherever, and we learn a lot. So, yes.
I said, can I interrupt? And she says, yes, please. So we have wonderful people here. The date is July 11th. That's a Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
Oh, thank you. Can we post that on our website maybe? And then people can just go on the website and get it?
Yes, that newsletter.
Yes. Yeah, so also we have a newsletter we do once a month. Vicky sends it out to the members, but I think you post it on the website too.
Yes.
Yeah, so check the website and get that information and a lot of other good stuff too. All right, now it's my pleasure. Okay, I've worked with Michael before. It's my pleasure to introduce Michael McGrath. He is going to give you a PowerPoint presentation on threats to our springs and preventing urban fertilizer pollution. He is with Sierra Club, Florida. He is lead organizer for the club, Springs Restoration and Wildlands Campaign. He works on local, regional, and statewide efforts to improve water quality and protect wild and rural lands from development pressures. In his current role, he helps to organize communities across the state around a number of issues, including leading opposition to the new highway developments like the Northern Turnpike Extension and MCORS. And we worked closely with Michael in Citrus County. He went to many counties, many cities. He went to Inverness City Council too. And he did a wonderful job of organizing everything. He researched the topic, he presented facts, and he got our local governments to put this on their agendas and pass resolutions against the Northern Turnpike Extension on our route going north, and that's what killed it. So we are just, it's just such a pleasure working with Michael. So he's also worked on pollution prevention campaigns for our treasured waterways, anti-phosphate mining efforts, and more. In his spare time, Michael enjoys being active outdoors and connecting with nature by paddleboarding, hiking, or camping. And recently he had a kayak trip down the Wikiwatcha River because he was working on getting the Springs Protection Zone passed. And that was as fun and an educational way to learn about, take a look yourself and look at the whole spring run and why it needed protecting, because people were getting out of their boats, causing erosion, they were trampling the vegetation on the shore, they were taking a rope on a tree and swinging it into the water. It sounds like great fun. It'd be good if you were at Disney World, but not in our natural resources. So during his presentation, Michael will share a bit about the threats to the springs of the Nature Coast, and he'll talk about how us concerned residents, we can organize and lead efforts for regional spring restoration work. And in particular, he'll talk about how our Citrus County residents here can collectively better regulate and minimize the use of yard fertilizer, low-hanging fruit for us to reduce the nutrients going into the waterways. And he will provide Sierra Club's analysis on what needs to be done to prevent further pollution and harm to our springs. Now, just recently, last month, Michael worked with Sierra Club Adventure Coast, which is, I belong to that group as well, but I did not work on that project. We worked with them to put a stricter fertilizer ordinance in Hernando County. So they went to the Board of County Commissioners and gave them information. We did that whole campaign, and it was successful. So we hope to do the same thing in Citrus, but we don't know if we would be able to because of legislation that got. What happened was, on a weekend, I don't want to go, the budget was going through, and unbeknownst to us, there's a line in there, line 146, and it funded a study, a $250,000 study to see what would happen if they reduced the air fertilizer and how would that affect the waterways. Well, we already know what it does. We need to reduce it. We didn't need that information, but it also would prevent us from passing the stricter fertilizer ordinance here in Citrus. Now, they got it in Hernando before the deadline. If this law goes through, it'll be effective July 1st. If we can get the governor to veto it, then we can work in Citrus County. If we can't, it's going to be a whole year, the whole budget year, we can't do that. And we're ready to mobilize, and so we're waiting. So if you go on the Florida Springs Council website, that's all you got to do. You're going to find an action alert there, and there's 3 different action alerts. This is one of them. Very important. It's got the tool right there. All you got to do is fill in your name and a couple things, and you hit go, and it'll send it to the governor and ask him to veto that. So if you could do that for us, and there's 2 other crummy bills on there too. There's let's try putting phosphate residue from the phosphate industry in the road. Okay, we don't want that. And then there's a third one. But they're there. So
I'm trying to remember. I think it was related to the citizen legal challenge for comprehensive plan, but
that's it.
That signed for sure.
One got signed. There's another one. So you can ask him to veto the other one. The one we hated was SB 540.
Yeah.
And that's so that you can't go and contest your local comp plan decisions, local land use decisions, like the Ozella thing. You couldn't do that.
Well, you could, but but then if you launch your case, you have to pay the legal fees on behalf of the city or the county, and that's just a huge burden for residents who are already cash strapped and just trying to do good work to protect their environment or the character of the community.
Thank you for your help.
Yeah. It's a lot to keep track of.
Everybody. All right, so without further ado, I give you Michael McGrath.
Oh, Trish, do you have a comment?
Just to go clear, we can still go to the LCC when it posted.
Yes.
Okay, but we
Lawsuits. We can go past the LCC in a lawsuit. So don't feel like you can't come to the meeting for a bill.
I didn't want to think that. Yeah, we need everybody possible in there. Thank you for clarifying. I didn't mean to cause confusion with that.
No, I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Okay, here's Michael.
Well, thank you guys. It's always a pleasure to be here in Citrus and Crystal River. My name is Michael McGrath. I'm a lead organizer for Sierra Club Florida. Just want to do a quick sound check. Can you hear me okay? Okay, very good. Anyway, so yeah, my presentation today is going to be about our springs and also how we can work to restore them. But I'd love to hear from folks in the audience as far as what are some of the reasons I brought you today's presentation, what you're hoping to learn. Just a couple of folks just shouted out what they were what brought them to today's topic, I guess. Yeah, go ahead.
To learn.
To learn. To learn.
What we can do about people who are on things.
Sure. Okay. Others. No one has a fascination or a love for the springs. No one likes going out and feeling young again while swimming out there. All right. Karen, is it yes?
County or for all of the county?
No. So this is part of the presentation will be more broad about a lot of the cleanup plans for a lot of springs. But there are also going to be some things that are going to be specific to Citrus County as well. So, but it's been focusing mostly on the nature coast, mostly within Hernando and Citrus. So, yep, we're going to see some watersheds today about the various spring sheds for some of the springs in our region. Maybe we can pull up the PowerPoint that we can view that.
No, Michael, would we be able to record this or would you?
Yeah, we can record. I think it's recording right now, actually. So that ship has already sailed. Yes, go ahead.
Before you get started, I have a quick question. Because I was kayaking down there, well, and I saw lots of people out of their boat, standing in the water, someone right in front of one of the signs that are posted on the shore that says, "Don't get out of your boat."
Yeah.
Standing right in front of the sign.
Yeah.
So what is it back down there to see that people are actually, I didn't see anybody come through when I was going. Is there any point?
Yeah, so a couple things on that, right? So folks might not be familiar with this already, but there is a proposal within Hernando County to basically create a spring protection zone, which will be the first of its kind within Florida, for the entire spring run of the Weeki River. Currently, there is a spring protection zone within the boundaries of the state park, but once you get past the boundary of the state park, it's kind of more privately owned land. And that's where the spring protection zone does not exist. And that's, I think, what you're referring to, right? Is that maybe it might have been right before where those state park boundaries are. And basically people are allowed to dismount from their vessels, somewhere within the spring run. And basically the goal is that we can actually extend the spring run all the way from state park boundaries all the way to Roger Park, where the park we can use it in then kind of upriver rent vessels from as well. And basically the idea there is that if we were able to get this passed, there will be enforcement mechanisms. They'll come from the sheriff's office or also from FWC, and basically that will help to limit people actually doing incompatible uses, recreational uses on the river. So it's just a matter of actually making the spring run all the way through so we can actually be enforceable and we can actually have these standardized rules between the entirety of the spring run. Gotcha. Yeah, and also folks, as you guys have questions today, I would just encourage them to just ask them, raise your hand. I'm one of people, I don't like people just holding it to the very end of Q&A. I think it makes for a more robust conversation if you have questions throughout the presentation. So feel free to ask it. So yeah, with that, unless there's any other final reflections folks want to share about what brought them to today's presentation, we can get into it. Go ahead.
Everyone who lives on. We live in the water, and we environment. That's why I want to be part of whatever you will help me make on.
Definitely. Okay, thank you. That's a great way to get into today's topic, actually. And I actually, on that note, I have a little more, not so much disturbing, but more sobering pictures to show, I guess. That kind of shows a little bit of the lack of our health with our environment right now. So we can just go on to the next slide, please. These are pictures from the Tampa Bay Times of some of the macroalgae growing within Weeki Spring Shed, for example. You can see some of the slime that coats the bottom of our spring runs. Next slide. I mean, those folks who live here in Crystal River know that Lingby has been a persistent problem for years now, and that's really taking over a lot of the submerged aquatic vegetation, the eel grasses, the sea grasses that make our bay so healthy, which hurt the habitat our fisheries as well as the forage for our manatees. And also, frankly, create less appealing from an aesthetic point of view for ecotourism operations as well. Next slide. And I might be a younger person, but I can still appreciate the fact that what's been lost, right? I think when we think about shifting baselines within, from what we had 20 years ago, 30 years ago to what we have presently, sometimes people will say like, "Oh, our springs look so gorgeous, they're so incredible." But when you look at what we had historically to what we have now, it truly is staggering losses. The spring runs we have throughout the entire state. It doesn't matter if you're in Crystal River or if you're in, High Springs over in Alachua County, right? Our springs are dying, right? And we see things like this that John Moran of Springs Photography has done a series on then and now photos of our different springs, and it's pretty staggering and sobering to see some of this. Next slide. Yeah, Crystal River is also not immune to this as well. So it's just a question of what are we going to do, right? How are we going to reverse this trend? So next slide. So okay, before folks came to this room today, the folks know that there are some culprits for a lot of deterioration. Perhaps folks have heard these terms before: nitrogen and also phosphorus. These are the two active, ingredients really that help to fuel a lot of these harmful algae bloom, fuel the growth of Lyngbia. Right, these nutrients are really the culprits for causing a lot of deterioration within our springs. So basically, I want you folks to, we're going to see some maps of some of the spring sheds within our locality, but basically imagine everything within the kitchen sink when is basically how it all flows into a certain spring area, right? And that's the watershed. So basically everything that falls from the kitchen sink is in the basin, it all is in the same place, and those active ingredients that nitrogen and phosphorus helps to fuel a lot of this harmful algae growth over time. Next slide. This is a good exact diagram, I think, as far as how rainfall within Florida, really helps to wash out a lot of these nutrients into runoff and into leaching into our waterways, right? This is something that Orange County uses within like their public education with its fertilizer ordinance to basically help people make a connection between how what you put on your yard eventually ends up into our lakes, rivers, and springs, right? So you can see just how in Florida, we all know when it rains, of course, right? You have these torrential downstorms that just wash everything out, and then it's very hard to manage stormwater when you have so much impervious surfaces, or when you have these storm drains that lead to other receiving water bodies as well. So when you're really feeding the lawn oftentimes in the summertime, you're actually feeding the algae. So next slide. And there's one thing I want folks to kind of just get out of today's presentation is that everything you pour on the ground up here ends up in our drinking water or in our surface water elsewhere, right? Florida's karst geology is so porous, right? It's like Swiss cheese. It will percolate through the ground and it will end up in the aquifer. So it's really, we have very sensitive lands here in Florida, especially within our spring sheds and for where our aquifer recharge zones are. So it's very important that we manage these landscapes appropriately and we don't overpollute and also over-fertilize our landscapes. It's incredible. We have incredible landscape here in Florida. We have over 1,000 springs here. It's really a treasure, an international treasure. And 80% of our outstanding Florida springs are overpolluted currently. So, and also spring flow from overpumping, overuse, from overdevelopment, from over irrigation, from over mining of things is causing spring flow to be down by 30% statewide. So, next slide. So we're going to get into some of the sources of nitrogen and phosphorus pollution, right? The first one folks might be already familiar with, fertilizer. So there's two really main ways that comes about. The first and largest source of pollution for our springs in Florida is agricultural fertilizer. It makes up the majority of contamination within the state by and large. After that, though, it's going to be yard fertilizer. And oftentimes you're going to see yard fertilizer being a higher source of pollution for more urbanized spring sheds, actually. And actually, Citrus County is actually a good example of some of those spring sheds in the state where you do see pretty significant portions of yard fertilizer contaminating our spring sheds here. Next slide. Sewage. So I think Max's comments about the Ozella project is actually a really good example of that. Leaky septic tanks, or pump out stations, really do help to really do fuel a lot of the harmful algae growth as well from just having, basic human waste being put into our waterways. This can come from a variety of forms. It can come from, leaky septic tanks that, are faulty and probably need to be replaced. It can come from, wastewater treatment facilities that, you know, are at capacity, and then during storm events, we have to pump out raw sewage actually to our waterways because they're over capacity. It can also come from basically biosolids actually, right? Which is, you know, I guess the euphemism that people use is it's a sewage sludge, a slurry, right? So of sorts that basically that actually gets applied on our agricultural pastures, oftentimes within the St. John's Water Rivershed and also the Indian River Lagoon areas, especially. And that also fuels a lot of the harmful algae growth as well. Next slide, please. Uh-oh, the next. There we go. Yep, and the manure, you know, from livestock, from poultry, and also not to be missed as well. Dog poop, right? When you don't pick up your pets while you're on your walks, you know, that also does contribute to things as well. And you know, think about the number of people pets we have, but it is by and large agricultural as well. I don't want to diminish that from livestock and poultry operations. Next. And uncontrolled growth. This is a picture that Carlton Ward took. I'm not sure if folks are familiar with him, but he does the series on Pat the Panther. It's actually right by the turnpike, actually over in Orange County. So you can see, you know, when we have, you know, these highways come through, what follows actually is uncontrolled growth, right? And you can just see the cookie cutter developments. You can see all the sidewalks and all the streets. That creates more impervious surfaces. When it makes managing stormwater more and more difficult, right? All the runoff from our lawns then gets into our stormwater and makes managing those pollutants more and more difficult. So uncontrolled growth is also a source of pollution for our waterways. Oh, uh-oh. Oh no, one more. Go back one. I want to show the Suncoast Parkway. Yeah, and the destruction of our wildlands. I believe this picture is actually taken out actually in Hernando. Picture of the Suncoast Parkway going being developed. You know, we've seen vast portions of the Withlacoochee State Forest, you know, taken out as a result of it. Other wildlands as well. You know, this is, you know, I guess in many ways the price of progress, right? We're losing the intangibles that make Florida so special. So I think that all these may say is, next slide, is that we have a series of bad policies here in Florida, right? It is there is guilt on all sides from all state agencies, and a lot of it leads back to the Capitol building in Tallahassee, from the various administrations that have been in charge for the last several years. You know, every single agency, whether it be FDAX, Florida Department of Agricultural Consumer Services, to FDOT with bad highways, to FDEP not enforcing, you know, good regulations for our waterways, to, you know, FWC not managing our wildlife populations properly, right? There is just bad policies across the board. So one of them actually that Maxine teed up perfectly actually today is, next slide, please. That was snuck into the budget the very last second, was a sneak attack preemption. How many folks before today's presentation heard about this by chance? Show of hands. Okay, so folks are somewhat familiar about this. I'm not going to belabor it too much. But at the 11th hour, you know, basically it was a proviso that was stuck into the budget to make a line item to basically commission a study with the University of Florida IFAS to basically determine the effectiveness of urban fertilizer ordinances, right? And we know that IFAS is in bed with the lawn care industry, with the fertilizer industry, and receives a lot of the donations and grants from that group of people, right? And actually, it's funny actually when we're actually pulling back more and more of the details onto this. The former Speaker of the House, I can't remember his name right now, Chris. Someone remembers him, and then they shout out, but he was a former Speaker of the House, and he was hired by True Green actually to go actually lobby for this line item proviso actually. Christopoulos. I'll remember it later. And then Christopoulos, yeah. So he was actually hired by True Green actually to go and lobby for this as a result actually. So, you know, talk about being in bed with industry, right, and trying to actually push for this. So we know that the results of this study are not going to be objective. They're going to be used to discredit, you know, the existing progress we've made on a number of fertilizer ordinances throughout the state, and they're going to be used as pseudoscience, basically create a narrative that they want for their own sort of you know, industry interest. So as Maxine mentioned, right, it would go into effect if it's not vetoed by the governor on July 1st, and then it would have a sunset date in 2024, right? But you know, the fear is that whatever the result of the study is can be used to inform basically gutting future fertilizer ordinances in the future, right? Undoing years of progress we've had on stormwater management. So, and as Maxine also mentioned, it would preempt or limit the ability of local governments to pass new or more stringent fertilizer ordinances, or make amendments to existing fertilizer ordinances that are already strong, right? Maybe you want to strengthen your fertilizer even further, right? If you're in like a county like Hillsborough or Pinellas or Sarasota County, right? You would be able to do that as a result because it basically set a limitation on what you could do. This is all just tying the hands of local government, really going against home rule, which is contrary to, I think, what the values of the GOP really should be. And when you think about home rule sorts of things. Karen, go ahead.
Isn't that study a little biased when you have a fertilizer company?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's
And we've already had it studied, this has already been studied before.
Yep.
So they're just prolonging. Stuff a little bit.
yeah,
To me, it's just a bias study.
absolutely. I mean, the evidence is so clear, right? That we know that yard fertilizer causes pollution, right? And we know that when the heavy rainfall events, it washes off our lawns or leaches beyond the root zone. So it's just kind of like, what's really to figure out here? There's a smoking gun already, and there's been all studies done on isotopic data, which is basically the way you measure, where something comes from, right? And we can say that without a doubt that there's a smoking bullet between, yard fertilizer and also the contaminants, the nutrients we see within our spring sheds. It's not. I mean, DEP is able to categorize the different pollution loads, and we're actually getting into some of those maps in a moment. So, anyways, next slide, please. So, where's the accountability, right? I mean, I think we need state leadership to have more accountability for restoring our springs. I mean, these are some of the most treasured things we have in our state. I think we've all had special memories with our family members or loved ones or friends at some of our springs here, and they help improve our quality of life overall. And, Florida springs are suffering because we have weak agency regulations. We have lawmakers who are not willing to have the backbone to stand up to industry. And we're seeing overpumping and also overpolluting as a result. So I just want to clarify real quick, if folks didn't know which agencies regulate what, right? So FDEP, Florida's Department of Environmental Protection, mostly regulates pollution, right? For cleanup plants for basically, the various sources of pollution to our springs, agriculture, wastewater, septic, yard fertilizer, things like that. That's the agency that's responsible for the cleanup plans, the basin management action plans. The water management districts, like SwiftMud, Southwest Florida Water Management District, are responsible for the consumptive use permits, which determines how basically users of water get to pump out water from springs. So those just folks can understand from a civics lesson how you can navigate those agencies. Those are the two agencies that really, what their charges or responsibilities are for springs restoration activities. Next slide. But I would say that, overwhelmingly, we're actually externalizing the costs, right? What I mean by that is that we're basically allowing pollution developers to basically put, the cost that they would otherwise absorb within their own bottom line and putting it onto us as taxpayers instead, and putting us the bill for cleanups and also putting us the bill for this ongoing crisis we have within our waterways. And basically, we as taxpayers pay for their costs, for their activities, right? And basically, they're just dumping it onto our backyards, into our commons. So, I think that's the image that kind of shows that right there, right? Be a good neighbor, right? Mm-hmm. Next. Okay, yeah, and then I don't want to belabor this again, but there was all these bad policies when they're all taken together, right? Is a unregulated soup of pollution, right? And we see, these massive algae growing on our waterways. We see declines of submerged aquatic vegetation. We see Lingvia coating our springs. And it's really starting to see that. We've all seen it, and it's really sobering. So, next slide. And I'm all for trying to do cleanups and for sucking away some of the algae within our spring sheds. But if we don't actually have meaningful regulation to prevent this pollution to begin with, we're going to be doing this time and time and time again, right? It's going to be a never-ending treadmill of cleanups, right? So we need to focus on prevention rather than just mitigation, right? Because mitigation is when we do this, right? We go and get the vacuums out, and we suck it up, and then we plant, new little grasses or submerged aquatic vegetation, and that's all great, but it's not going to last. It's not going to make any sort of long-standing changes if we don't have prevention as well. So that's the point I want to make around this slide. So would you continue to be on the constantly cleanup treadmill time and time again? Yeah.
That's because they don't get at the root cause.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
what you're trying to do.
Yeah, which is folks might be familiar with the entire Babies in the River rabies in the water sort of thing, right? Some people want to pick up the babies as they come down the river, but some people want to ask the question, where are these babies coming from in the river, right? So we have to go upstream to address the root cause of these issues to begin with. And that's what today's presentation is focused on. Oh, I couldn't do a slide without saving the manatees. I mean, this is you know the bread and butter for Crystal River, right? This is the bread and butter for Citrus County. It's what really propels the ecotourism operations as the foundation for the local economy here. And we don't want to see the Nature Coast or Kings Bay become like the Indian River Lagoon, right? We don't want to see these unusual mortality events happen here in the Nature Coast. We rather, you know, continue to protect our resources, and you know, if we're not careful, we can reach a tipping point where we're going to have irreversible returns like they're seeing within the Indian River Lagoon. So, I mean, have folks been to the Indian River Lagoon as of late? It's really sad. Like it's actually like you'll be paddling and you won't see any seagrass at all the entire way. And like, you know, just like for fishermen, right? Like the place they used to go for like, you know, fly fishing or for things like that, just gone. So we don't want that here. We still have a chance to really protect this great resource here. So next slide. Oh yeah, this is just a fun little figure I actually found. Oh yeah, this is in St. Lucie. Yeah, this is in the River Lagoon from a hormatology event back in 2017. And you know, having that slime right there, right? Do you really want to visit Florida with that? I don't think so. But you know, I found this fun fact from a report back in 2019 that showed that there's over 4 million visitors to our state park system for our Florida Springs, actually, right? That has Florida Spring in them, and that was an impact of around $370 million. That's significant. I mean, these are economic drivers, right? It's an important part of our tourism. It's something that it's a lifeblood of our economy. We need to protect it for, you know, not just, you know, aesthetic reasons or for because we like, you know, the wildlife and also they enjoy recreating it, but also has true economic deliverables as well. Next. All right. The aforementioned slides on the spring sheds. So we're going to start with one outside Iowa County right now, over in Hernando and Pasco. This is the Weeki Wachee Spring Shed. So, you know, this is kind of a pie chart that DEP basically made when they were first creating the basin management action plans. Are folks familiar with that term? Is that a new one? But basically, these are more or less okay. So basically, this is basically the basin management action plan is essentially the cleanup plan that DEP uses or should be using to basically limit the pollution loading to a spring shed, around an outstanding Florida spring as they've been categorized. And they basically have determined all the different pollution loading areas, right? You can see that urban fertilizer accounts for the second largest contamination, which is 22%. First is septic tanks. And you can see that, you know, his heat map right here kind of shows, you know, how land use is within Hernando County and Pasco County. The orange area, right, kind of shows where there's medium density residences, right, suburban lots, right? So you can see it's a lot of lawns and also, as you might anticipate, also a lot of septic systems as well. Next slide, please. This is nitrogen loading to Kings Bay Spring Shed. Septic tanks is the #1 source of pollution to Kings Bay, unfortunately. But urban fertilizer is not too far behind as well. It's at 15%, still a significant source. And I think one point I do want to make right here, actually, while we're at this point in the presentation, is that septic to sewer conversions are expensive. It's very expensive for homeowners. It's very expensive for the government to be able to do that. Preventing urban fertilizer is not expensive. Basically, you pass the ordinance and you provide alternatives, and that's a source of pollution we can address overnight, right? Septic sewer takes many years, but we can address this low-hanging fruit more quickly here in Citrus when we think about that from a point of view of how we can actually restore these spring sheds. Go ahead, yeah.
Isn't this going to get a lot worse with the
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how do we get it?
Yeah, I mean that's why it's like a whole principle soul is trying to, you know, limit these changes to our comp plans and like have better smart growth principles, you know, to limit development where it shouldn't be. I mean that's I not to get ahead of myself, I would say just make sure you're always attending your planning and zoning board meetings, keeping a watchful eye on that sort of stuff, especially. So go ahead, yeah. Oh yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I usually don't go into that one too much. So when you look at the nitrogen cycle, a lot of times atmospheric deposition comes from a couple of sources, but the main one is car exhaust, right? It's basically, you know, your car exhaust that's create I'm not a chemist, so I can't remember what the actual compound is when it comes out of your exhaust, but it does end up as nitrogen when it comes back down into the rain. That's when the rainfall. So actually, which is actually a good segue because there's already actually enough nitrogen actually in our rainfall to begin with to actually fertilize our lawns. So you really don't need more yard fertilizer because you're already getting enough of that nitrogen input from our atmospheric deposition to begin with. Some of it's natural, some of it is also human-made anthropogenic from our car exhaust. So all the more reason to switch to electric vehicles or just to bike more often if you're able to. Next slide. So this is the Homosassa and Chaswick Spring Prairie Focus Area. They chose to map to put these two spring sheds in the same basin management action plan. You can kind of see where these two are. Homosassa polygon is the one on the upper area, and the Chaswiska is one on the lower area. You see that they both also venture slightly into Hernando County as well. So these I think one of the things people want to take away from this as well is that these issues go beyond just our own county jurisdictions as well. It really comes down to coordinating across multiple counties as well when we're trying to address these watershed scale issues. Go ahead.
It doesn't include Sugar Mill Woods.
Can you go back to that?
It doesn't?
Oh, because that's the priority, that's a priority focus area, no, that's not the BMAC area. Right?
This is from the Basin Management Action Plan. I pulled this from the Basin Management Action Plan. Can you? I'm not. Can you make the point where Sugar Mill Woods is? Thank you.
Sugar Mills is area right in here.
Oh, you mean Hernando County? Yeah.
Well, it's in Citrus County.
Yeah, and we're 19 in
It's in 98,
Yeah.
this corner. Yeah.
go down and to the left. There's another section of Sugar Mill, but it's not Hernando.
Yes, it just means you're not in the spring.
Yeah, it means you're not in the spring for that one, but if we went back to the Wiki Wachi spring shed, I'm sure that would do. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't care. Yeah.
Because like in Sugar Mill, there's so much stuff around everybody's yard, but
Sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
That's the priority focus area, springs, primary, isn't that part of the BMAP, it's not, the BMAP is bigger than that, right?
I think the spring priority. I mean, my understanding is the spring priority focus area is kind of the watershed area for the spring shed.
So you think it's the same?
Yeah, this is from the 2018 BMAP for Chas Homosassa. So that's my understanding. But I could be incorrect. So, anyways, next slide. Yeah. So I'll just say this because I'm not sure folks can see this, but for Homosassa, urban fertilizer accounts for 24% of the pollution loading, and for Chaswiska, it's around 90%. So again, pretty significant sources. Obviously the second biggest for both those spring sheds, followed closely by, agricultural pollution, both be in the form of livestock waste or agricultural fertilizer. But still, it's a significant source of pollution that we can address within those spring sheds, respectively. Next slide. So since 2007, Sierra Club has had a campaign to basically adopt and secure the strict, no exemption, rainy season application bans for urban yard fertilizer. And we began in Sarasota County back in 2007. And since then, we've had 18 counties, that's actually not updated quite yet, 18 counties adopted these strict fertilizer ordinances in over 100 municipalities. Again, this addresses yard fertilizer contains nitrogen and phosphorus, right? And basically it helps to establish these annual application limits as well. When it's not the rainy season, basically you can limit how much pollution loading goes in per 1,000 square feet. So basically we try and advocate for 4 pounds per 1,000 square feet as a way to kind of compromise and cut through the, find a way to appease homeowners as well who want to just try and fertilize during the non-rainy season. We also require, and advocate for a minimum slow release nitrogen content requirement of at least 50%. That basically helps to slow the delivery of nutrients to your lawn. And then we also advocate for a year-round fertilizer-free zone of at least 15 feet, but preferably 25 feet, especially as of late. And also, really, when you look at these are the most cost-effective way to manage stormwater. When you look at a local government's toolkit for clean water. So, and it's time for just kind of to join the club, right? We want to just kind of be the 19th to be to adopt one of these more stringent fertilizer ordinances. Yes.
So these, has a cut. Applies to the commercial or non-care, and also to status, like, are we bringing some?
Yeah, so another bad policy in Florida. So first of all, I want to just address the lawn care. So yes, it applies to certified applicators. When we say strict, no exemption, that's what we mean by that, because oftentimes you'll see some counties actually try to exempt certified applicators, lawn care professionals, right? Citrus County actually has the exemption right now. Hernando County had it as well previous to this. Orange County had it as well. We had basically had to go back and basically fight them to basically make sure it's uniform rules for homeowners and also lawn care professionals. And you'll oftentimes see that is that's one thing we have concerns about is that, once you start organizing around this, the lawn care industry will get wind of it and then they'll start advocating, well, we really know how to regulate ourselves, so exempt us to be undue burden for our economic activities. But that's not true, right? And we'll get into some of the alternatives later. But the second question you had about sales bans, right? So Pinellas County passed a sales ban back in 2011. After that, the lawn care industry went crazy, and they lobbied they lobbied the legislature to preempt the ability to pass future sales bans, giving exclusive regulatory authority to FDACS, Florida's Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. And since then, we've not been able to pass sales bans because it's on the books of state statute. I would love to one day repeal that state statute so we can actually pass these sales bans. So we can actually pass sales bans as well, in addition to just application bans. But frankly, we just don't have the landscape for that right now in Tallahassee. So I mean, we're doing what we can to basically pass fertilizer ordinances that have an application ban. And then we can do things also, which we'll get into the presentation as well, to basically provide signage at the point of sale for your hardware stores, your Home Depots, your Lowe's, so people know when they're buying fertilizer products, like, oh, this is not compliant with summer ban. I shouldn't buy this. And that's one way to get around it. But unfortunately, we cannot pass sales bans at this time. So, other questions before we go on to the next slide? No? Okay. So yeah, I mean, that being said, I'm encouraged. I'm really encouraged because we're making strides to really address yard fertilizer in a significant way. Just last month, we were able to secure the 18th strong fertilizer ordinance in the face of the looming preemption. Hernando County has made a commitment to help to restore the Weeki-Wachee, both the screen protection zone as well as now with this stronger fertilizer ordinance. Some of the highlights, it has a rainy season blackout date. It does not exempt certified applicators. That was a big concern we had because the previous ordinance we had in the books did exempt certified applicators, which is the reason why it was useless. And it does establish a 25-foot fertilizer free zone. So I think Hernando County shows that if we can get done there, we can get done in Citrus County as well. So next slide. So I'm going to go over the very high level as far as our analysis on Citrus County's fertilizer ordinances. So do folks even know that? Did you guys know that Citrus County had a fertilizer ordinance on the books? What do folks hear about that? Yeah, and the bare minimum doesn't have a blackout date. It has basically, it advises you not to apply fertilizer when there's forecast of over 2 inches of rain, right? Which is impossible to enforce. Like in summertime, like it can be any day, right? So like how are you gonna enforce that? How are you gonna time that within your lawn professionals' delivery schedules? So the citrus ordinance is funny because it has a winter blackout date. Which is completely opposite what you want, right? I mean, like obviously, like turf grass is more dormant during the winter months, which is fine. You probably want to apply fertilizer. You waste your money to begin with. You want to apply in fall and spring, but having a winter blackout date makes no sense at all because it doesn't do anything to limit excess fertilizer going to our lawns, right? In fact, it actually kind of creates it's actually a distraction for a smoke screen. If you ask me. So it's the blackout is from November 1st until March 31st, and it still exempts certified applicators, so they don't have to follow those laws, right? So basically, that's language that's concerning that I'm scared that they might try and retain in any future updates. And then it also only requires a 33% slow release nitrogen requirement as opposed to a 50% slow release nitrogen requirement. That's an easy fix in my opinion. The good things are though that it does have a 25-foot fertilizer free zone. We got that, so that means you can't apply fertilizer on your lawn. You're 25 feet away from a waterway, wetland, or other sort of receiving water body, stormwater retention pond. So yeah, and the targets here, right? It's pretty simple, right? we need the county commission basically endorse this and to authorize, taking this up. It's about working with county administrative staff as well. And we'll also come down to starting with Crystal River City Council and then go into the county afterwards. We can talk about that as a group as well, how we want to approach that. So next slide, please.
Why does that say under good exempt fertilizers applicated? And it also says exempt them in the back. It's listed both places, so it's under bad it says exempt certified applicators, and then under good it says exempt certified applicators.
I'm saying good things, 25-foot fertilizer feed.
Yeah, but then the other one says exempt certified applicators. So, but it's also under good.
So they,
So you're saying that
They have
the
to-
certified applicators can spray 25 feet of the water? Is that what?
That's leftover. That's a typo. I'm sorry about that.
That one is a
Yeah, that's a typo. I'm sorry. I know it's okay. I'm sorry about that. It's a typo. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Application.
Uh-huh.
Do they, or the fertilizers and so forth? Statistically.
That's actually a really good question, actually. We have a really good colleague actually we work with, Michael Junkwitz, with called Southwest Florida Garden Masters. He has over 10,000 clients ranging from Manatee County all the way down to Collier County. And he'll tell you firsthand that he doesn't want to waste his product, right? He'd actually rather be more judicious about using his product and not, because fertilizer costs a lot of money, right? So, I think in general, lawn professionals are not trying to excessively, pollute. I don't want to say that, but I think they're more judicious with how they're using their products, but they will still apply in the summertime, right? And nature is nature, right? If it rains, it's gonna wash that away from your lawns.
I remember it was this where in the beginning, you couldn't buy 25 or whatever the high nitrogen was in the summer. Well, I think it was anyway, some homeowner thing.
every week.
So the thing they do is kind of wake them up to the same level.
Sure. So I understand.
It's like, it's septic fields are.
Mhm.
And they're also, so septic fields, you got sewer lines that run all through.
Mhm.
Yeah, they still have a period when they don't really enforce it yet.
Mhm.
And then when they will. They don't work.
Yeah.
Years ago. The agricultural waste.
Mhm. Mhm.
Very large.
Yep.
Filter.
Different non-point, right?
They said, we're gonna come here and force you to. Do this thing at least on a training system.
Mhm.
40 years later, not much. I'm sure we visited that dairy department, Citrus County, and it's always said that it's probably be hard for us to see it.
Yeah. No. Yep. Yeah. So I'm gonna get back to agriculture a little bit later when we talk about basic management action plans and our litigation we have with the state about trying to create better enforcement mechanisms to actually have policies that have teeth. So I do want to address that, but I also want to address your question about is any of this even effective because of the fact we can't limit sales bans, right? I would argue that yes, it can be effective, and here's the reason why, right? How many folks grew up in the age when there wasn't a requirement for seatbelts? All right. So you guys wear your seatbelts now? Who wore their seatbelts on the way over here today?
Yeah.
All right. So you guys have internalized that cost, right? About understanding that if you don't wear a seatbelt, you're putting your life at risk for bodily harm, right? Or death, right? We need to begin to internalize the costs of urban fertilizer to go into our waterways, right? But you can't do that unless you have the laws in the book to begin with as well, right? So like if we don't have the laws in the book say that this is the law, you must comply, you must follow, people are never going to follow, right? So it's like I understand your concerns about like, not is this actually be effective or not, but
we do with car.
yeah. Mhm.
The first day. PVC valve here, the tool, emission control valve, internal combustion.
Mhm.
And it's particularly like in California, and look at your car, I mean, you're just crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, we have fertilized all.
Yeah.
I mean, it has some mechanism to do, but it's tax on fertilizer.
Yeah.
They should just-
Yeah, no, exactly. I think putting a tax on a lot of different things would make a lot of sense. Yeah. I won't get into that one, but you know, I definitely think for if we're going to try and make a way or putting a tax. Not I don't want it to also only fall. Now we're getting off on another thread. But I don't want. I mean, I think the point is that we need to find ways to get laws passed. So we can begin to internalize those costs. So we can actually begin making progress somewhere, right? So a lot of it is also going to come down to public education, and you know we can do that with HOAs, with the communities we know are public polluting. We can do that making sure our lawn care professionals are following the ordinance as well. We can do it with making sure we have signage at the point of location for sales of non-compliant products in summertime. We can work with store managers that are retailers to make sure that when they're putting the products on the shelves, they're putting the non-compliant products away from eye level and putting it at the very bottom instead. So there's ways you can deter that sort of behavior as well. So anyway, so fertilizer-free zones. Go ahead.
When you talk about looking down at the local level.
Mhm.
Something different about the number of student council that.
Oh no, I'm sorry. That's just I miss. I should have included that as a bullet as well. Yep. Yeah. No. Inverness is great. In fact, I think Inverness probably would be more likely to pick this up than Chris River. So. So yeah. Yeah, no, I they have a really good city manager over there. So I think that he'd actually be entertained with this actually. So yeah. Anyways, so yeah, fertilizer free zone, right? As I mentioned before, basically the area from away from an adjacent waterway or wetland, or stormwater retention pond, that where you cannot apply fertilizer year round, right? If you are going to apply fertilizer, let's say you're one of those DIYers that wants to apply fertilizer during the allowed period, right, in spring and fall. I would encourage you basically use your deflector shield and angle it away from the fertilizer free zone. Make sure that those granulars of fertilizer don't get into the waterway or wash away as a result, right? This just 25-foot free zone. Imagine it's like a buffer, right? Like a riparian buffer, basically absorb any of the excess fertilizer that washes away during the rainy season. So, go ahead.
Golf courses, because they come the ways supposed to use the greens that they use all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good question. So what about golf courses? So folks might have seen in some of the pie charts, if you guys have really good eyes, that there's two categorizations between urban yard fertilizer and also sports turf grass fertilizer, right? So we DP and also, we also categorize those as different sources because they're two separate beasts, right? When we're first trying to adopt the first fertilizer ordinances in Sarasota County and the Gold Coast, the golf course lobby came out really hard and said, if you try and do this, we're going to kill it. So we unfortunately had to basically make a compromise back then to approach yard fertilizer as a separate beast than golf courses. There are golf course basic management plan and best management practices that have been adopted by a number of communities that limit excess fertilizer. If folks are really want to get into this topic, I'd encourage you to look into Sanibel's golf course BMP program, one of the best in the states. They've done some good jobs as far as fair ways to care for aesthetic greens while also encouraging more landscaping and having less fertilizer. So, go ahead.
The fertilizer bags, say anything about the 25 feet?
Yeah. The actual bags that you buy in the stores?
In production, the way I use fertilizer.
It's going to move down here, used to the different laws coming around, and they don't come to meetings like this. It's not the paper, so it should be a notice on the back.
When you buy it. Yeah. Yeah. So actually, that's a really good transition. Actually, so next slide. You're a perfect today, honestly. Okay, so this is what you see on the bag usually, right? Oftentimes, we'll see a guaranteed analysis, right? And basically, this is basically will show you what total nitrogen content is within a bag. Basically, you can do some back of the hand calculations to figure out whether or not it's 50% slow release nitrogen, right? And basically, I guess the euphemism I want folks to internalize is that slow and steady wins the race, right? So when you have slow release nitrogen, you apply it in the early spring, and it will help deliver those nutrients over the course of the summer months, so you can help keep your grass sustained with nutrients and also green as well. I wish that Scott's and Miracle-Gro and the other fertilizer conglomerates would say that, hey, I want you to look up your fertilizer ordinance in your county and follow the law, right? And basically say don't apply within 25 feet of a waterway. FDACS, Florida's Department of Agricultural Consumer Services, does not make the requirement to fertilizer companies when they distribute the fertilizer bags here in Florida. So the way to get around it, right, is to you're going to see a slide on this actually in 2 slides about basically putting notices at the point of sale, right, at your Lowe's and your Home Depots that are basically hanging in the aisles, right, very big placards that say, if you apply this, you're feeding the algae, not your lawn, right, that sort of thing. And that gets the message across very quickly. And then after that, it had all those strong provisions under it, right? Don't fertilize from June to September. Use slow release nitrogen when you do fertilize in the spring and fall. Never fertilize within 25 feet of a waterway, right? Things like that, right? That would be the way to get around that. So, yep, go ahead. And summer safe products abound, right? So we have seen progress from the fertilizer industry to basically create, summer safe products. And what I mean by that, right? The two culprits again are nitrogen and phosphorus. But there are things we can put on our lawns during the summer months if you do wish to fertilize that are compliant, right? It's basically it comes down to doubling the zeros, right? On your fertilizer badge, you can see NPK. The first two numbers represent the total nitrogen content, total phosphorus content, followed by magnesium content, right? You want to make sure that those first 2 numbers are always 0 during the summer months. And then you can also, but then if there are 0, right, then that is compliant fertilizer you can apply to your lawn, and you apply some iron and magnesium to it, and that will really help actually green up your lawn, right? If you're looking for, you have some brown patches and you want to have a little zest into there, you want to, impress the neighbors, you're having a little bocce tournament, that's the way to do it, right? And that's a way to actually get around these things. So we all have satisfied, aesthetic values for our lawns. At the same time, though, we're starving algae instead, right? So there are alternatives. That's why I just want to put it out there, right? So I'm not one of those people who's going to say that you can't fertilize ever, right? I'm going to say, let's do it smart. Let's fertilize smart. So, but just make sure you double the zeros for those first 2 numbers. Go ahead.
Isn't that a radioactive material?
I want to get twice the pay for going back.
I know.
Yeah.
Were you seeing that? Molly Bentham. So it says essential for plants performing biochemical processes in efficient growth. I got this from Orange County's website.
Okay, so it's not.
No. So yeah, and also if folks are very signed in as well, I would encourage you to do that before you leave, because you will get a copy of this presentation. Then you can look through the entire slide deck, and it's a pretty good reading material as well. Okay, yeah, and I think everyone wants to save a few bucks, right? Enjoy the nice summer vacation. So why not skip the fertilizer this summer and send your fertilizer on vacation as well? And I think it's just better to do that as well. I mean, I think some of the things I also want to make point of is that when we over fertilize our turf grass, it actually creates a greater infestation of various pests, right? Chinch bugs, for example, is a good one, right? And it's funny because I think sometimes the lawn care professionals and pest control folks want to keep you on this hook, right? As a client, make sure you continue the services. So it's all very entrenched. So if you over fertilize, your plants will become weaker, and as a result, you're going to need more applications, or you're going to have more chinch bugs and installations. So we need the pest control folks to come out and spray the lawn as well. So why not just avoid all of them? Just send the fertilizer on vacation. So.
Doesn't it mess up the whole biome too?
Yeah. Yeah, when you apply like pesticides like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kills good stuff, yeah, as well as the things you don't want.
Yeah. Which is, yeah, we're running into the alternatives also for even going beyond just not fertilizing. But next slide. Uh-huh.
How many counties in Florida?
19. Oh, no, 18. Excuse me, 18. Yeah, 18 over 100 municipalities. Lee County passed theirs back in 2010. And like really, actually, it's funny. Like a lot of these like more conservative counties passed them first, right? Like it was because they realized there's a direct impact between water quality and also homeowners' property values, and also ecotourism operations why people can visit. I mean, if anything, I mean, I live in Fort Myers for the last 4 years. I live in Pinellas County now, but like Lee County is really dependent on good water quality. And like, gosh, I'll tell you, we have so many issues down there with the Coxsackie and also red tide and blue green algae, and a lot of it comes from yard fertilizer, agricultural fertilizer, leaky septic tanks. You talk about ground zero for water quality issues. It's Southwest Florida, and they realize that, and that's why they're some of the first to jump on the bandwagon and say, yeah, what can we do to address this? So there's no reason Citrus County shouldn't be as well. So yeah, and public education can be fun, right? Don't Feed the Monster is from Lee County. That's I think the swamp monster. It's a good one. Keep your babe blue, not green. Skip the fertilizer this summer. That's from Sarasota County. Protect Fund. That's the Be Floridian campaign, which is led by Tampa Bay Estuary Program. Basically encouraging folks to be Floridian, right? To basically join us in not slamming our waterways, but instead just go to the beach and protecting everyone's quality of life. And then of course, who doesn't love the charismatic river otter? My Yard, My Springs is something that's led by Orange County, right? It helps kind of create these connections between, what you do on your lawns does impact your local waterways. And you can find fun ways to kind of get the message out and that sort of stuff. Next slide. Yeah.
So are those, the posters all around their communities, or have they on the water bill, and how do they?
Great. Oh, that's a really good question, actually. So the question was, time to evacuate. Thinking so. All right, guys. So okay, so yeah, so oftentimes actually when these counties actually do send out water bill notices, they actually will say like in the month of May, make sure you follow the fertilizer ordinance next month, right? So that's a good example of one. I know Orange County does that. There's also examples where they have like PSAs. We're actually listening to PSA in a moment from Seminole County, which is pretty good. Where like they have commercials that go on the broadcast airwaves, basically that let people know that the fertilizer ban is in effect. There's billboards that people will put up as well in very high congested areas to make sure folks follow their ordinances. I saw that quite a bit when I was living in Lee County. There's point of sale notices, right, which we're seeing on the right hand side right here. There's even folks from county staff who go out to HOAs and do presentations, basically make sure that they're aware of the regulations, right? And also the University of Florida IFAS extension offices, right, which is different than the big IFAS campus at UF. But the extension agents are really invaluable and good resources, and they also do a lot of public education and programming. I think when you do have the ordinance in place, their hands are kind of tied because of the nature of their job. They can't advocate for what we can advocate for. But once we do get the ordinances on the book, then they can become great ambassadors of it afterwards. So let's see if we can play this video. I'm not sure if it's gonna work or not. We're gonna find out.
Spread across the ground. Whenever you see it, goodbye in the sky. And that's what you need. So,
That's it.
well, Central County government and its partners will deliver you to fertilize responsibly. You have the facts at fertilizeflorida.com.
Anyway, so let's say folks probably heard that a little bit, right? And like, oh god, we don't want into a county commission meeting. Oh, you have to escape? Uh-huh. Okay. Escape. Uh-huh. Let's see
It's
here.
an escape.
We can't escape,
It
guys.
is an escape.
All right, here we go.
That's fun. Way back.
All right, next slide. Wait, I say this is an example of in Martin. Go back actually real quick. Guys, everyone ran pop already, All right, so this is an example though in Martin County, right? Where they have these point of sign cell notices, like, in the aisle, right? So you can see, you can be very clear. Let's be clear. It's really cool. That's what vision about. And again, like I was saying, right, you want to work with city manager, with store managers, and basically say, hey, we want to put these 100 cars in the high level areas of the aisle with the non-compliant stuff. We're storing around the That's what we're doing on that because we can't. Because legislatures can't really do that, but we can find more inventive, innovative ways to do that. So, and then again, this is something that basically the county makes an allocation of their budget, basically provide materials to store to basically the various stores. So that's something that we will be advocating for with the Citrus Board of County Commissions, basically make that line item in their budgets that we have these educational materials to basically roll out the fertilizer ordinance. Next slide. So yeah, we had some comments about. Oh yeah, pulled my 40-yard. You seen it?
Oh, I love it.
Oh, can you share a bit about it?
Well, it's where they pick somebody who lives in Florida, and it's through that U.S. extension you talk about, and they do it for free, and they'll come in and they'll dig up everything that's in there and put down all these Florida native plants, and it's really like a before and after. That's fine.
It's a program, yeah. So like, I feel that's HGTV, huh? We all love HGTV, right? I guess it's a good one, right? But like, this is basically like a native Florida landscaping HGTV show, right? Where basically they come to your house and they make it completely native landscaping instead, right? So it has compatible native vegetation. It's good for pollinators, good for waterways, good for habitat for birds, and basically, good for just creating, native flora, right? So I think, if you're considering, how you might take some more immediate steps as an individual to lessen your own footprint on, our planet and to our waterways, starting with native vegetation is a good way to begin, right? It all comes down to the right plant, right place, don't try and spend $2,000 at the nursery today and like try and plant everything you can. Like observe your lawn a little bit and figure out what would be the right, plant species to go within your soil profiles, your shading, all that sort of stuff. But there's a lot of easy things you can do that actually can become low maintenance, right? It can actually save you time, save you money in the long run, and actually is more aesthetically pleasing as well. And also, was not going to require as much, irrigation as well. So you actually save money on that. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm a big native plant advocate. I think a lot of folks in this room probably are as well. So you're probably preaching to the choir. Anyways, so next slide. I'm really tired of talking. I would love for maybe we can break into groups of 4 or 5 or so with the folks around you, and I'd love you guys to discuss what are some activities that we can all do, either individually or collectively to kind of get the ball rolling on this. So maybe we want to do that for about the next 3 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll share in groups. It's just self-organized. cc@gmail.com. And if you want to go to our website, so you can find it. And this sticky scribble, this scribble. Yeah, appreciate it. We're gonna be back in about 15 seconds. Just make sure you have a person who want to share what you guys come up with, right? Right, and folks, just have your last little statements. Allow your conference to come to a natural close.
And they can say, oh, it's like.
All right, give me clap once. Give me clap twice. Give me clap 3 times. All right then, very good. All right. All right, very good. My mom was a teacher growing up, so you know. All right. I want to hear from you all. So let's go with the group over in the far left hand side, I guess. Would you all come up with the group? Yeah, yeah.
Mainly to see how we can get interest value, the measurement was put in the block that you're, up to speed with what we just did. I mean, we have 3 outstanding Florida springs here in Citrus County. Orlando's got 1, we keep watching. And, you know, Citrus County should not be taking a back seat to Orlando County on this issue. So, send a note to my contact at the front. Get them more involved, having the like like.
Actually, the Chronicle had that really good Ed board memo actually that came out about the preemption ban. I'm not sure you saw that. Oh, was that one confident? Thanks, Brad. Yeah.
It's not a direct, it's a member, he comes to our meetings. I'm also a vice president of the Fort Springs Council, but my student was talking about. I'm here to learn and I came here to keep you honest.
Thank you, Brad. I need help with that. I struggle each day. I waver. Okay, so I heard some good ideas though, contacting our county commissioners and also getting the local press involved with Citrus County Chronicle. I think those are 2 fantastic ideas. What other ideas do folks have? Maybe this small group wants to share. Maybe you have someone from your group who wants to share on your behalf. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things is we need to use the resources that we already have. Sovereign Path, they have a wonderful garden area that they're actually growing and they do plants and so forth. But they do something extra. If each of the stops, just take a picture. And also show ways that you can use to make it attractive is to use certain crops like chickens and and so forth. And then you have a lot of time. Just for me, it's probably better than the city of national education.
Nice. So you get involved with more outreach, I guess.
Yeah. Tell us about first something.
Well, in 32 years, I've never put.
Hang on, guys, quiet for a moment, please.
Never put fertilizer or anything. Saltwater. That is saltwater resistant because like if you get a flood, it's really bad for us. I have the salt system. So usually when we get a flood, we also get a lot of minerals that come in from the water. Very greater. But it's like the test all these things.
For the natural, or
Yeah, for all, yeah, the weeds that grow too. Yes, it's just, never really. Long maintenance and, all that done, so it's like, no, I've never done that anymore.
you'll know it's good.
That looks great.
Awesome. So another testimony for native plants. Okay, so we got some champions for native plants over here. Great. How about over on this side?
You said one more thing,
Yeah, sure, of course.
we think maybe we could go and leave the one in Northern California.
Yeah.
We're gonna to really, we're available for free.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. So basically, I would have also, if anyone's actually is interested in basically taking some sort of version of this presentation onto the road, you guys are more than welcome to use my slides. If you want to help be ambassadors for this ordinance, I'd be happy to give a training and also just kind of go through some of the ins and outs of this as well with you all. And I think, doing scheduling presentations, different community groups is a great idea. So I love that.
Yeah, that's right.
Challenge was to who wanted to adopt it and
Yeah.
do it as a community, why I think rather than want to own.
hmm I think Trisha's point is a good one, right? So, I think we need to get homeowner associations on board. I think, you guys know better than myself what the more influential ones are here in Citrus County, and they have more clout with the county commission. So, you get a couple of those HOAs on board, right? You approach their board, you approach their folks, and you have them vote to basically say like, yeah, we support this. That you can create some good allies.
This guy in Central County native plants that they did a home tour from, not faster than
Mhm.
actually does it as business. It's a manager.
Mhm.
My country will pay off to have a next. Yeah, but, maybe getting him involved, when we could, there's a business out of it, but he certainly has some in wonderful homes that you could show homeowners associations really exist, like the non-having facts.
Is it mostly in Sumter or is it in Citrus? They is
Even
Citrus.
something, but
Hey, can we, you can come across? Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, more money.
Yeah. Another situation, we're involved.
Uh-huh.
If we could collaborate with a local group. I think it would be really good.
I agree.
And they were the ones who took us over Sumter and did the article. So that's on the.
Nice.
And like,
Of course, yeah.
You mentioned every time they try to pass ordinances, all these lobbyists come in, the fertilizer coming, the lost bear coming. So we want to support the good guys. Is the Sierra Club a lobbyist that would support this? I mean, I know that.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, I am a lobbyist, so like I
Is that a place our money could go that would support the positive process?
The Sierra Club is always welcome donations and also more than anything welcome membership. So if you want to become a member of the Sierra Club, it's like $20, $25. It's really easy. You get to come to all of our outings, which we can get into a little bit as well. You get to have more chats with me and all that sort of stuff. So yeah. Yeah, I highly recommend it, yeah. Okay, so the Native Plant Society, creating better coalitions, that's a good idea as well. Approaching HOAs, other folks, other thoughts, maybe a couple more. Yeah, go ahead.
Some kind of not expensive sticker or decal that could be available at locations where you're purchasing fertilizer. They could sit on your bag. And those decals or stickers would be local. So you would have a citrus cat sticker there.
Mhm.
And it basically would simply say some of the things that we said here. I really believe in my heart that most of the people who take care of their own yards, they just don't know. What you have never seen a stop. That's what they do. You have stop. Oh, fertilizer, the non, the little stuff, that gets on there, that's it, you want to feed it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I'm getting all kinds of cool plants in my yard. It's even grass, or I did native grass here, always in.
Nature's amazing.
Yeah, so bugs and snakes and spiders. There you go. It's wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. The other thing I wanted to mention is the point of sale for realtors. They're like right here in the forefront, and maybe have a pamphlet available to hand out to the public to say, this is our fertilizer ordinance. And especially around, the waterways, but anybody who buys it, but somebody who's reached out and they don't have a clue how, and they're only listening to the landscape architect on the other.
Mhm.
Like they're getting that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I think at a point of sale, would be a good, also, just a little consider something just, putting in to make people aware.
Mhm.
We had to do that in Southgate with that, political appointment for new people moving in, for the people aware. It's working really well down there, so I think this girl after learning is point of sale, which is great.
Cool. I love the idea of like a little welcome packet. Like I've been wanting to do one of those,
Yeah.
like for like welcome to Florida. Here's some ways to live here appropriately.
Yeah.
So don't touch your manatees. Let's begin with that one. Okay, cool. I think those are some really good ideas. Maybe does anyone else have any other last closing thoughts? Yeah.
We have to get the county board of commissioners to agree to the ordinance. And you mentioned it would be in their and budget. How do you, use, how much is this gonna cost? Because that's always their question.
Okay. Sure. Okay. So she had a question about getting the county commission on board, and then I said some comments about line item budget. So I want to kind of parse it out a little bit. So the ordinance is separate than the public education budget, right? So getting the ordinance updated, right? For Citrus County already has a fertilizer ordinance, right? It's a matter of us revising it, right? And changing it so it actually has regulations that actually work, right? And then afterwards, it'd be about us basically advocating for them to appropriate significant funds, right? Not talking like millions of dollars, talking like literally maybe 100,000, that, right? Maybe more. I'm not sure what they would be palatable to them, but like it's not like really expensive to do that, right? Like when you consider the millions of dollars that go to septic sewer conversions, it's pennies on the dollar, right? And like it's
They wanted to change, to get
yeah. So
that's what they're like, well, what's this gonna cost us? What was the staffing gonna be to do it? That's really there for you. Yeah, see what you think. That's really that's their first question. So you have to be able to compare.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I think it comes down to, us having meetings with county administration, right, from staff side first as well, and broaching the question. I know you all have a new county administrator who came here from Camden County in Georgia. I forget his name off the top of my head right now, but I'm sorry, Steve Howard. Yeah. Okay. And he's been, he's doing the job. It wasn't done. Its ordinance wasn't done under his administration. It's a way to approach the conversation with him and be like, hey, Steve, you want to have a win for Citrus County? Why not do something that's very effective in managing stormwater that other counties have done? You could have a little feather in your cap, right? So stoke the ego. Stoke the ego.
And I can totally see that he is, as you said, new, but I think he would be receptive to the pulse of the community. So if he let you know right up front, hey, this is not a sleeping county here. We are active, we are. You mentioned cost. There's a cost of doing nothing. Yeah, there's like a really big cost to. I feel like the Orange Canal is a great example of the cost of just letting something go through. Look what happened in Yankee now.
Yeah.
There's the cost of doing nothing.
Yeah. Well, I love all of that, guys, and it was nice to get to break from talking. So, that's fun. Yeah, so I think we already touched upon this already, but you guys are just so brilliant. You guys already outlined this perfectly. I think public outreach is great. You know, again, building those coalitions, reach out to HOAs, engaging the local ecotourism businesses as well. I think, you know, commissioners, like when you're trying to advocate something like this, they want to hear from the business community, right? Well, it's more than just the lawn care companies. It's also the ecotourism operations, right? It's the local mom and pop shops that, you know, line our downtown areas, that, you know, create such a great community here in Citrus. So, you know, getting those folks involved as well and saying that, you know, they sign on to some sort of letter that says that, yes, we support these provisions within this fertilizer ordinance. We want to protect our waterways, is a great way to kind of help facilitate that exchange as well. And, you know, just when you have great ambassadors from this community, just helps get a lot more things done. So, and it's lobbying staff in the BOCC, right? So if you have other ideas, I have cards you guys can take. We can continue this conversation, or we also email things out on what you sign in today, and we can chat one-on-one as well. So next slide. Okay, we're gonna get through. I'm way over my time. It's such a patient audience. So we already kind of talked about the weak water protection zone. This is a kind of quick plug for that. There is going to be a FWC meeting in July on either the 19th or the 20th. It's rumored to be in either Jacksonville or St. Pete. I'm hearing Jacksonville is probably where it's going to end up. I hope it's in St. Pete because it's easier for all of us to get there, right? But this would be a great opportunity if you want to speak in favor of the spring protection zone extending from the park boundaries all the way down to Rogers Park. It's a great opportunity to basically tell them to follow the original proposal, which was basically to create the entire spring protection around the entire area. Yeah, so any questions on the Water Protection Zone? Go ahead.
I think you can do personal comments.
Oh, yeah, thank you, yes. You can send them to votingpubliccomment@myfwc.com. Or if you also Google Wiki Watch Protection Zone, they'll come up on the webpage, and then you'll find all the information you need to provide public comment there. And just say, hey, I'm a user WikiWatchy. I'm tired of seeing love to death, right? So, next slide. We already have those public hearing, but make sure you say the date for August 22nd. I believe that's at 5:01 p.m. Is that right?
Yes.
5:01. That's very time specific. So good. All right. I don't really need to go into all that sort of stuff, but actually did a great job teeing it up. 10,000 gallons of raw sewage when it has inundation from high tides or hurricanes is just not good. So again, this actually is a diagram to see where it is actually on the Ozella area. There's 3 little dots represent where each of the land use changes would be present. So, any questions on that one?
Now, what you can't see is a little island to the grass and trees, both that bottom and look up. And it's just, I think it got made by somebody making them. Yeah, okay, thank you. I have primitive campsites on there. On the island. It's there, and this is terrible.
Yep. So you contact the county commissioners and who's relevant staff if you want them to contact as well. Anyone in particular?
Well, you can do, the land development quarter.
Joanne? Okay, there's a lot of information on the Adventure Coast Sierra Club website. Just go to Sierra Club, just type in your web browser, Sierra Club Adventure Coast, and then scroll down, you'll see all the information you need for Ozella there. So, yep. Oh yeah, and also, yeah, I would encourage folks, yeah. Yep. So yeah, let's see here. June 13th. Yeah, I would time a letter to the editor sometime in early August, and also if you haven't already engaged some of the business folks out there, which I'm sure you guys already have, so next slide, please.
On the Sierra Club website, that notice you got today in writing is on there, posted all the information that you.
So, the folks hear about Florida Springs Council's Basin Management Action Plan litigation. We had, okay, so that's a little lesser one. Okay, so how to summarize this in 2 minutes. So basically the state passed in 2016 this law called the Florida Aquifer and Spring Protection Act, right? Basically said we were going to make new basin management action plans for our outstanding Florida springs. There's over 30 outstanding Florida springs in the state. 80% of them are impaired. When they made these beat maps, it was very clear they weren't going to work, right? They didn't actually, they might have actually shown what the pollution loading was for our spring sheds, but they actually had no mechanisms to enforce actually reducing those pollution loadings, right? We want to get pollution loading down to about 65%, and we're getting nowhere in that, right? The agricultural best management practices were voluntary, right? They weren't actually verified by any sort of regulatory authorities. So basically, as the gentleman's comments were earlier, is there actually anything being done around agricultural pollution? No, there's nothing being done around agricultural pollution, and that's the biggest source of pollution to our springs. So we took the state to court because we wanted to hold them accountable, and we said that your BMAPs are not effective. They're not scientifically good, and they're also not legally good. They're not following the law for what was passed by the legislature. It took us many, many years, but we did win that litigation from the District Court of Appeals. And now DEP will have to redo the basic management action plans for the spring groups that we challenged. So next slide. So yeah, FDP failed to contest a court ruling by the deadline back in March. So now FDP will have to basically go back and rewrite the basic management action plans for the Swanee, Santa Fe, Ishitani River, Rainbow Springs, and Silver Springs, and also Volusia Springs. And they should be doing that right now. They've been dragging their feet on this, but I would definitely encourage you to sign up for Florida Springs Council, is to get their alerts on this issue, because when there needs to be pushed out from the grassroots, we'll let you guys know that way. And then also, I think what's really cool is that it will actually set a precedent for future basic management action plans that are relevant to this area, right? So the basic management action plans that we talked about today, Homosassack, Chaswiska, Kings Bay, Weeki Wachee, right? Those ones are to renew in 2024. So we'll have next year, we're going to have an entire process basically reevaluating the BMAPs for those spring groups. And that's a great opportunity for folks to get involved as well. So this is something to kind of have on the horizon if you want to find a way to kind of get involved or longer term spring restoration groups, spring restoration activities. So in my opinion, we get the fertilizer ordinance passed this year, early next year, right? And then we move on to the basic management action plan, just try and address some of the bigger things as well. So all about building inertia. Next. So we're going to plan some outings later this summer and fall. If you want to come and join me on the river and other leaders at the Venture Coast group, we'd love to have you. Probably go out in Chaswiska, maybe swim through Seven Sisters and that great labyrinth of caves. Have folks done that before?
Read the sign and 3 people alive doing that.
We'll be careful. We'll be careful, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah. So, I like the chat, but if you're hankering for Homosassa or somewhere in Kings Bay, we can do that. And it's just a great way to enjoy our springs and get out there and fall in love. So I mean, part of the mission of the Sierra Club is to explore and enjoy, and in addition to protect, but we don't mainly do the enjoying and exploring enough. So join me for a guilty pleasure on the springs. So you'll get noticed about that if you sign up on today's meeting. So next slide. Yeah, and then just final things, right? How you can be involved. We kind of touched on this already. Sign up for action alerts. Subscribe to Florida Springs Council. Subscribe to Sierra Club. Become an active member. Engage with your HOA or other community groups that you're a part of. If you want to get training on how to give this presentation, and you want to basically give it to another community group that you're a part of, I'd be happy to facilitate that. I'll give you the slides, and we can figure out what you want to share, what the message wants to be, or you can get me up here as well, and I'll do it. If you are in a septic tank, just make sure you get that inspected regularly so it's not faulty. And just join us for upcoming outing or public hearing when we have these pushes. So, and yeah, just read my emails and respond, and we'll be good to go. So, anything else? I think is that it? Yeah.